Edward, thank you so much. Edward Lawrence. Let's bring in former acting chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, Tom Philipson. Tom, in terms of, there's a lot of people's underwear on fire about President Trump and his plan on tariffs. But what we saw during his first time in office, the tariffs that were slapped on overseas trading partners, the importers and the companies ate about 80% of them. How do you see this playing out? Because Scott Bessent, who might wind up being the Treasury Secretary, has described it as E2D, escalate to de-escalate.
Well, I think there's a lot of misperceptions about Trump's tariff policy. The most important one, I think, is that the RNC is basically calling for a substitution of increasing taxes on foreign companies, i.e. tariffs, versus lowering taxes on our own companies at home through corporate tax cuts, tips or whatever. But it's an important point there because liberals want to argue that foreign companies, when they're tariffed, push all those taxes onto consumers, like you said. But when it comes to domestic taxes, consumers are not eating those taxes because if you cut taxes on the U.S. firms through corporate tax cuts, according to Democrats, that's just, tax cuts for billionaires as opposed to consumers and workers, et cetera.
Right.
So it's this big misconception of who basically bears the burden of tax. But if you look at prices, back to your point, Dagan, if you look at the price effects, foreign tariffs affects about imports are about 14% of our GDP. China is about 2% of our GDP. If you slap increased taxes on those guys compared to lowering taxes on domestic firms, which is 86% of our GDP in size, that's presumably a win for prices of going down overall. And when you're substituting domestic taxes for foreign taxes.
Yeah, let's pay attention to the major things and the minor things and get them right. But the other piece of this, Tom, is Trump is a negotiator, right? Tariffs are a negotiating tool. And in some ways, actually, I think he's being helped by the left in this country, taking it so seriously that he's going to do 100% tariffs on everybody across the planet, because those countries then say, well, he must be telling the truth. This must be right. We better come to the table. So in a way, they're helping him use it as a negotiating tool. And the end result might actually be fewer tariffs than we're all talking about right now, because countries have a reason to say, OK, what can we do to make this right, Mr. President?
Yeah, Brian, I totally agree with you, because the uncertainty of his tariff is, it's a feature, not a bug of the policy. It's a great tool to essentially have people not knowing what's going on and therefore coming to the table. Look at the wine tariffs that he tried to sort of threaten France with when they were trying to have digital taxes on our tech companies. That never happened, right? But it was a very good negotiating tool. And particularly with China, we have a lot of leverage on China. China needs us a lot more than them. And substituting domestic taxes, again, for foreign taxes on an adversary is particularly useful if you're trying to limit that adversary, which is the case with China.
Right. And just one quick thing. Looking at, say, Steve Madden, I was on Brian's show talking about this, and Steve Madden, the shoe company, said, oh, we're going to speed up moving our production out of China, and they still, in terms of their imports, 70% still come from China. And I went, where you been, you dopes? Why are you still making such a large percentage of your goods in China when other companies, whether it's Polo, Ralph Lauren, or Tapestry and Coach, it's minuscule?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, China, like I said, China needs us a lot more than we need them, and that's a great leverage in these negotiations over trying to hit them. But most importantly, Chinese tariffs are different than other countries' tariffs while we try to get reciprocity. Chinese tariffs is about punitive measures on a military adversary, really. And so it's a different story with China relative to other countries.
Amen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tom, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on today.